Welcome to this brief Linux Air Combat review update from January of 2021. This follows on from our introduction to Linux Air Combat from late 2019, which was done in synchronized with the publication of our first official production release known as version 7R92. Back then there was a general expectation that the vigorous, active development that had characterized LAC would cease. My wife Susan and I had actually expected to move to Mexico for 2 years, serving as Latter-day Saint missionaries for the Church of Jesus Christ. However, when the coronavirus escaped from China and arrived in the USA, that mission was indefinitely postponed, and I found myself quarantined right here in the LAC development laboratories with a lot of time on my hand. So I decided to continue LAC's development. Accordingly, since publication of our review of Linux Air Combat release 7R92 back at the end of 2019, several little bugs were fixed, making it notably more stable. Program crashes have been virtually eliminated. Also worth mentioning, back in July of 2020, LAC was discovered by the Raspberry Pi community and has since been adopted by a small group of Pi fanatics due to its lightweight design and consequent high performance, even on that very inexpensive and tiny computing platform. The released version has advanced to what is now version 8.41, and 9 improvements have been implemented. Those 9 improvements are: 1 of 9, improved aircraft graphics. 2 of 9, we have an option to use a USB-style console game controller, like this, instead of a joystick. 3 of 9, an alternative keyboard map has been optimized for people flying with laptops. 4 of 9, we improved the flight model just a tad with rudder-induced roll. 5 of 5, there's a larger, more complex mission named Peabody's Mission. Number 6, we improved mission descriptions in the menus. Number 7, we've got smoother flight visuals due to more frequent network packets. Number 8 of 9, we allow the optional installation in the global/USR file system. And number 9 of 9, we have powerful integration with online documentation. Now, we'll be discussing each of these 9 improvements one at a time during this brief little overview. Improvement number 1 of 9, improved aircraft graphics. Back in January of 2021, very recently, we published a new set of web pages containing optional files that can be used to tune the quality of LAC's aircraft graphics. The new page is very easy to find through a prominent button labeled Enhanced Art at the top of LAC's official main web page. Now, due to the new stable nature of LAC's software during the past few months, the release of new versions has become less frequent. It's no longer necessary for users to install updated versions of LAC on a regular basis. To improve aircraft graphics, it's far easier to simply replace individual files from these new enhanced art pages. 3 distinct aircraft art collections are offered. The first of these new aircraft art collections, named the Standard Set, implements a substantial improvement, and it is recommended for all users. I'm going to launch the latest version of Linux Air Combat and show you very quickly what the airplanes now look like with this enhanced standard set. Now, clicking on menu, games, Linux Air Combat version 8.41. Let me turn down that background noise just a little bit. So if you look at default aircraft, you can see, I'm just going to click through them quickly, and those of you that are familiar with what they used to look like, you'll notice that some of them are substantially improved, especially the Japanese and British airplanes look a lot better, but a lot of them are at least slightly improved. And there's a lot of improvement also in the frame rate. They just perform better. Here's some Japanese planes. Remember the old Kawanishi Shiden was quite primitive. And just clicking through, you can see we got some decent looking airplanes. There aren't any that looked silly. And last year there were still a few that looked quite primitive and silly. Now they look pretty good, and they still render really fast. This is our new standard set, and you can get this whole set. And even if you have an old version of Linux Air Combat, you can download the individual planes from this standard set and it's just going to look a lot better. I especially like the P47B. Isn't that nice? The Corsair looks great. Just, a lot of these are significantly improved. Some Russian airplanes. I didn't actually improve these last couple of Russian airplanes. And there's our jet. But yeah, in general, they're greatly improved.
Thank you for
As a
joining us.
side-by-side
We hope
comparison,
to
here's
see you in the
the
Linux
old
Air Combat Online community again
P40.
soon.
The P40 Warhawk looked like that until very recently, but now, as of this publication in January of 2021, you can replace it with this version. As you can see, it looks a lot better, but you still get a decent frame rate. So I like that a lot. In addition to that standard set of aircraft models that you just saw, we've also published a more detailed set with prettier graphics for those with more powerful Linux desktop hardware, and there's also a simplified set with more primitive graphics for those with less powerful graphic processors. Note, however, that really very few people will ever need either of those two alternative file sets, since the standard ones that I just showed you look almost as good as the more detailed set, and even inexpensive Raspberry Pi hardware is generally able to handle all of those standard detail levels. Option 2 of 9. We now have the option to use a USB console style game controller instead of a traditional joystick. For those lacking a conventional joystick for flight control, LAC has long offered a robust option to fly with just a mouse instead. Now, in addition to that option, players can connect a USB console game controller instead. Most of our users agree that this option works a lot better than a mouse, since low-cost multi-axis console game controllers can dedicate precision hardware to ailerons, elevators, rudders, throttles, view selection, etc., as shown in this image. Improvement 3 of 9, we have an alternative keyboard map for laptop keyboards. Many users have been running LAC on laptop computers, but they lack a full-size keyboard. Because those keyboards often lack, or at least scatter, the organized cluster of 6 keys that LAC's standard arrangement uses for zooming the field of view, the radar, and the map in and out, use of these simplified keyboards has been kind of cumbersome. Furthermore, the Raspberry Pi community, the Raspberry Pi Foundation that is, announced availability of their new Raspberry Pi Model 400 shown here, which is becoming very popular. Like many laptops, its keyboard layout does not include the convenient rectangular cluster of 6 keys that we've been using for all of LAC's zoom functions. Several other keyboard keys are missing too. To compensate, all LAC versions since 8.40 from January of 2021 include an easy option to double map the keyboard keys for affected functions. Here's a picture, you can see what we're up to here. In addition to LAC's long, stable convention that maps keys to functions according to our existing online documentation, this new option hard codes the following additional keys and functions. Num plus here will zoom your radar in, and num minus will zoom your radar out. The insert key will zoom your field of view out, and the delete key zooms it in. You can query your forward observer with the enter key. And these others, for viewing left, right, up, down, forward, back, and weapon select, have always been around. As you can see, most of those hard-coded changes rely on formerly unused numeric keypad keys. We now activate all of that. Let me see what my next picture is here. We now activate all of that through the 64-bit of the network mode variable as configured within our lacconfig.txt configuration file. And you can get full details of that in our frequently asked questions number 52. Shows exactly how to do that. And I would refer you to our frequently asked questions number 52 to get the details there. That's our third of 9 improvements. Improvement number 4 of 9 has an improved flight model. We've got a rudder-induced roll. Let me show you what that looks like. I'm going to fire up Linux Air Combat again. Click, Games, Linux Air Combat.
Disconnected from server. Connected.
And I'm just going to fly our Network Battle 03.
Disconnected from server. Server connection failed. Connection refused.
And while I'm flying, see if I roll my rudder, put some rudder left, you can see my airplane actually has a slight tendency to roll. When I kick rudder right, my nose starts to swing to the right, but my airplane tends to roll a little bit too. That roll wasn't there before. We'd been ignoring that until December of 2020. But as a consequence of this change, pilots will need to more realistically balance this rolling tendency when they assert strong rudder input. Now, improvement 5 of 9 is a larger, more complex mission. We call it Peabody's mission. Now, I've got a movie here that's just going to play while I describe Peabody's mission. I'll just let this movie snippet play in the background, and you'll be able to see a little bit of this mission while it's running. This is from some pre-recorded activity that where I flew with a buddy a little while ago. You can see him flying in the distance there. During the last half of 2020, 10 new experimental online missions were added to LAC's menus. At first, all 10 of these new missions were identical. New mission developers were solicited from the LAC community with an offer for each to adopt and improve one of these 10 new missions. As of this writing in January of 2021, only one of these 10 new missions has been completed. The other 9 new missions are all marked test in the mission menus. The completed mission is named Peabody's mission, and it is larger, more sophisticated, and I think more fun than any of the 3 well-known classic missions that you're familiar with from last year. Victory requires destruction of 2 enemy airfields instead of just 1, and the 2 opposing HQ airfields are both strengthened with a very strong artillery battery that you've never seen before. The terrain is mountainous and includes numerous valleys and canyons descending well below the level required for radar detection. After any attack inflicts damage on any airfield, surviving airfield personnel begin making repairs which can be accelerated or decelerated by nearby combat according to the threat represented versus ground activities. Now, LAC's server almost always runs a rich series of replay missions in the Realm 01 environment hosting Peabody's mission. Accordingly, even if just one sentient player, if you are the only human player flying in this mission in Realm 01, you'll find the action is always diverse and exciting, even if you're the only player, because you'll be surrounded by the server's choice of replaying other activity that it finds interesting. As a consequence of these changes, Peabody's mission has emerged as the LAC community's new favorite, and when populated robustly, it generally requires several hours to complete. Improvement 6 of 9, we got some improved mission menus. New players have been shy about joining our advanced online multiplayer missions. It's true that LAC's learning curve is steep and intense, and newcomers might reasonably expect to be shot down a lot during their first few encounters against an experienced opponent. However, the LAC community is still struggling to recruit new online players, and most of the time the online missions are idle, each waiting for just one sentient player to join. In that case, the online missions are operating exactly like the very popular offline missions. New users really shouldn't be intimidated because the LAC community really is friendly and anxious to help them get started. And new players always have the option to find an unoccupied mission for solo practice. Furthermore, several of our online multiplayer missions are automatically populated with replay blocks by the LAC server. This means that the server replay activity from prior human players, or the server replays activity from prior human players that it deems to be interesting and appropriate to the situation. And these replay missions are certainly interesting, but they're far less devious and less difficult than opposition from a real, living, sentient player. Now, you can see these menus describe this. Here you can see the new menus describe the greater flexibility that we have with these replay missions, and try to encourage users to not be too frightened to try out the brand new missions. Improvement 7 of 9, we have smoother flight visuals due to more frequent network packets. I'm going to go back to that playing movie. Where was that? During the replay of this movie, you'll see, if you're looking at other aircraft, you'll see they move more smoothly than they ever did before. Commencing with LAC version 8.40 from November of 2020, LAC now ignores the LAC-config.txt setting for network transmit timer interval if you are flying in one of the odd-numbered realms. So if you're flying in realm 1, realm 3, realm 5, 7, 9, etc., then all of those realms always transmit 10 packets per second. The even number realms, realm 0, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, etc., all consult the configured value of network transmit timer interval from the LAC-config.txt configuration file according to our long documented norms, and the default for those realms remains at 5 packets per second. Accordingly, the odd-numbered realms transmit packets twice as fast. Until recently, all user activity has been focused on realm 0, and even now, most users are finding one another in realm 0. We still coordinate all of this finding one another activity through VoIP conversations using on the root channel of our Mumble server at linuxaircombat.com, and that's how you find new players, through Mumble. When flying in realm 0, the server almost always replays activity from prior online players in Mission Network Battle 02 and in Mission Network Battle 03. Recently, a few players have begun to use realm 01 to get that faster packet flow, focusing on the new mission named Peabody's mission. That mission is larger and more complex than any of the 3 long-stable classic missions. The popular new Realm 1 environment for that mission benefits from the doubled packet rate, resulting in smoother tracking of online players and replay blokes. When flying in Realm 01, the server almost always replays activity from prior online players in Peabody's mission. Now, it's kind of hard to see the improved smoothness because it really wasn't that bad beforehand, but if you watch this movie, you may notice an improvement. I can see it. Improvement 8 of 9 allows for optional installation in the global/USR file system. This is done with version 8.41, the latest, greatest version as of at this time in late January of 2021. Version 8.41 is nearly identical with version 8.40. The primary difference is the file system location in which it's installed in its Linux installation. Unlike prior versions, version 8.41 requires temporary root privileges when it's installed. Instead of installation in the user's home file system, version 8.41's executable is installed in the global file system at /usr/bin/lac, where any user can easily access it by simply issuing lac as a command to a bash shell. Furthermore, version 8.41's other resource files are also stored as shared objects in the global file system at /usr/share/lac. Only user-specific configuration and log files are stored in the home file system for each user. Now, this arrangement is more compatible with well-established conventions of Linux repositories. You can see the smoothness now, it's smoother. That's what I was trying to demonstrate before. So now that we're installing in the global/USR file system, we're much more compatible with well-established conventions of Linux repositories, and this ought to contribute to LAC's adoption within the mainstream Linux community. Let's go with improvement 9 of 9. Powerful integration with online documentation. LAC can now invoke web pages through the user's own web browser. To take advantage of LAC's extensive online documentation, LAC's menus have been enhanced with convenient links to the best of the Internet's information about LAC and about each of the 54 aircraft that can be simulated. This is of particular interest from LAC's aircraft selection menu, because the user can invoke one or more great YouTube video clips about each airplane with a simple mouse click, implementing a virtual air museum experience that can last for hours and hours. It's now a lot more fun to explore LAC's wide variety of aircraft. Let me show you that. I'm going to fire up LAC. Here, games. Linux Air Combat.
Disconnected from server. Connected.
From its main menu, you got our online documentation. You can click right here and you get our static training stuff. But if you, when you want to select an airplane, for example, suppose we want to select the Focke-Wulf 190. If you click here on Check for Multimedia, it invokes a YouTube video clip. Let's see, this might not work because... Oh, you can't see it because I'm running in full screen mode. Sorry about that. Trust me, though, it's nice. It'll play YouTube video clips about each of our 54 aircraft, and it's really a nice experience. You can spend hours exploring the aircraft, and then if you find one like you, just fire up LAC and fly it. Okay. Summary. LAC's development throughout calendar year 2020 is best characterized as mature adjusting. It's a little easier to install LAC and to configure it for optimal use on more diverse types of hardware. It's a little prettier, it's a little smoother, I might say it's much more reliable. It almost never crashes now, virtually never crashes now, and one additional mission is available. Some of the menu text has been clarified, and the flight model benefits from one tiny improvement in realism. But even after an entire year of these mature adjustments, LAC's basics are unchanged. All of the 3 classic missions remain so interoperable and so intercompatible that nobody's compelled to upgrade. Every upgrade since the original production version 7.92 from late 2019 is strictly optional, but those who choose to upgrade will undoubtedly enjoy a better overall experience. Thanks. This concludes a summary of all the things that have been done in the last year. Hope you enjoy it.